Hello, welcome to stage 3 of our Fly Me to the Moon project. You will have just heard the improvised solo that I did at the end of the previous video on the trombone. And what we are working on today, or in this video, is to get you doing the same thing. So we are looking for simple ways to give you the freedom to make up your own melodies that fit with the rest of this piece in terms of the piano, if you're playing with a band, what the guitar would be doing, what the electric bass or acoustic bass would be doing. And so to do that today I'm holding a guitar because it allows me to play stuff and talk at the same time. Now, up here we have a diagram that some of you may have seen before. If you're in high school, you may have seen me chart out one chorus of the song in terms of these 16 boxes. We started out just with the first 8 bars of the piece, which are represented by the first 8 boxes on our diagram here. So bar 1, bar 2, bar 3, bar 4. Bar 5, bar 6, bar 7 and bar 8. I've added the next 8 bars as well, which would take you all the way up to bar 16 on your written copy. That's where you have that little doobie-doobie-da, that little lead up into the second chorus. So basically what we're doing is we're looking at 16 bars of the piece, half of the page, which is once through the chords for the piano and the other instruments. Now, there are a couple of little tricks with this. Sadly, this song is not as simple as just playing a B-flat major scale for 16 bars and saying, great, job done. If you want to do that, and in fact, this is your extension work that will come up at the end. In the beginner resources section of my page, there is a video that has like a pop rock backing track, and it's about 5 minutes of backing music with a full rock band, and you can go to town. You can put on some headphones or a Bluetooth speaker, and you can practice improvising, making up your own music, simply using your C major for trumpet or your B flat major for low brass scale. That one's great because it doesn't involve too much thinking. Sadly for us, to play along to Fly Me to the Moon, we need to have our mathematical brains engaged a little bit as well. And that is because there's a trap. First 4 bars of the song, really easy. You can make up whatever you like using your B-flat major scale. I'm going to keep talking in trombone language for now. Trumpet players, obviously, you're in the key of C. You can make up whatever you want out of your B-flat major scale. Try and focus on jazzy swing rhythms, getting that nice kind of steady swing feel all the way through, just like we did with the variations. And you're good. If you've been in a high school class where we've talked about a little bit of this already, you'll know that the note Mi, the third note of your scale, is going to fit with what the piano is doing at the end of the line. So you might play something like da-dum, 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 da-da-da-dum, bum, ba-do-do, da-dum, ba-da. And as long as you end down on Mi, or even on a high version of it, it's going to sound good, it's going to fit. Bad news though, halfway through the second line, the band are going to try and trap you. They are going to get to bar number 7, and all of a sudden, they are going to be modulating, changing the key of their chords, into the relative minor. Now, by this stage, having just watched the lecture on majors and relative minors and taken notes because you're a fantastic student who actually takes notes in their journal, this isn't going to concern you at all. You will be very familiar with your harmonic minor scale that relates to whatever major key we've been in. So trumpet players, hopefully you're very familiar with your A harmonic minor, and low brass players, hopefully you're very familiar with your G harmonic minor. So here's the plan. In order for this to work, you need to get good at being ready for when you need to shift from the major scale to the harmonic minor. If you're really clever, you know that actually you're only changing one note to do that, but we'll get onto that in a moment. Let's have a listen. I'm going to hit play on the backing track through my crackly little Bluetooth speaker behind me, and we're going to follow along, and I'm going to give a really obvious indication when we've hit bar 7, which, when you're soloing, is when you have to change to the harmonic minor. Let's have a listen. I've gone to musiclessonswithmrtaylor.com, I've found the backing track just underneath the demos. This is the one with a picture of a trumpet that's melting. I've pressed play. Let's have a listen. This is the intro, bar 1. 3, 4. That's it. Lovely. So as soon as you hit bar 7, that's the point at which one of your notes is no longer going to work because of the chord that the piano player is providing behind you. That is what we need to be ready for. Have a listen to this. I'm going to improvise something mega simple. Going to keep it as simple as I can. And I'm going to call out when I hit bar 7 and have to change a couple of my notes. Now, in order to be more similar to what we normally do on trumpet and trombone, I'm going to keep my range of notes a bit more limited. On guitar, it's easy to play high. You don't have the same challenges that you do on brass instruments. You just move your hand and you play higher. It's really easy. So I'll do my best to pretend to be a brass player. I'm going to start and finish my first phrase on Mi, third step of the scale. And let's see what happens. Cool. So in my head, I'm counting. In particular, I can feel the start of bar 5, and then I'm keeping track of 2-bar phrase, hit bar 7, and instead of the major scale, at bar 7, we get that harmonic minor. That kind of snake charmery, desert-like sound. And that is really the hardest thing that you're going to have to do in this whole process. So, step 1, you need to practice listening to the backing track, counting through, and being ready for bar 7. In our classes, we practice this by having one person do the first 4 bars, and then we had the next person do the next 4 bars, and I was giving the cue. Sadly, you're the only person in your practice room, probably, who can help you with this. So practice improvising in small chunks. Ending those phrases on the 3rd note still works. That is a great idea. Next though, what if you say, okay, that's all well and good, but this is hard. I have no idea what I'm going to play. Like, there are no notes to show me. Yes, I've done a variation. Yes, I've listened to a few versions of Fly Me to the Moon, but I still don't know what I'm doing. Fair call. So, this is where something that we did last year, if you're a continuing student, we had the Pokemon Getting Jazzy series. This is where this is going to come in handy. I'm going to take one of the rhythms from here. I choose line number 5. You might remember this. Eevee, 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 Bulba, Saw. That jazzy rhythm, I'm going to take that as the start of my solo. And I'm going to make it even easier. I'm only going to use the notes Mi and So from the scale. So it could be as easy as... That's all on the note Mi, or there's So. Eevee, 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 Bulba, Saw. Now the only problem is I want you to sound fantastic and not just okay. So I'm going to take out the very first note of my pattern and make it into a short breath. So instead of Eevee, 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 I'm going to come in on the 2nd syllable. V, Eevee, 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 Bulba, Saw. V, Eevee, 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 Bulba, Saw. That's really tricky to say. Much easier to play. 1, 2, 3, 4. So, taking the rhythm, taking out the very first note, because that makes it sound more exciting than just playing on beat 1. You can either jump straight to that phrase if you feel comfortable with it, or you can keep that beat 1 note there and then remove it later. And this is what we get. 4-bar intro. And I deliberately tried to keep coming back to the mi note there as well. So, you now, hopefully, having paused this a bunch of times, practiced it a bunch of times, possibly over a few days, become really comfortable with feeling that change. The good news is, the rest of the piece, you can just use the major scale for the whole thing. As I did there, I started with my Evie, 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 Bulba, Saw rhythm, and I started mega simple in terms of notes. I just had E and G for trumpet, or D and F for low brass. And then when we got to bar 7, I shifted my G note to G sharp, and for low brass, my F note, which is the 7th note of your harmonic minor scale, becomes F sharp. 5th position for trombone, 2 and 3 for baritone. And then for the rest, it was just plain old major scale. Whew! That gives us 2 things. Practice listening, practice developing a rhythmic idea, and finally, the question is, what unique characteristics does your instrument offer you in terms of playing? And getting an idea of this is going to come from listening to other musicians playing. So perhaps in one of those versions of Fly Me to the Moon you found before, there was a trumpet solo, or a trombone solo, or a saxophone solo, guitar, whatever. Every instrument has certain things that come more easily to them. For example, trombones are very, very good at the little slides up to notes. Dia, da, do, da, dia. We're really good at that. Trumpet players are great at playing big, long, smooth, slurred passages because all you do is tongue the first note and change fingers. You're also particularly good at playing fast if you've practiced your scales. If you haven't practiced your scales with good tonguing and stuff, yeah, you're not going to be able to play fast. Guitars are good at playing multiple notes at once. Now, rather than get into all the double stopping, which is having multiple notes going together, I'm just going to keep it super simple and maybe use some octaves, which is a very common jazz guitar thing. I'm just going to sneak in this extra little bit of recording here because I realized that for those that have only just been learning the major scales, let alone the harmonic minor scales on the back of your Seagull Scales Step 1 sheet, going between them in the middle of a song is going to seem really challenging. But I have some good news for you, so I'm just going to erase all this stuff and I'll show you why this is not as confusing as you might think it is. Hopefully you are familiar with that diagram now. You don't need an indication that the song has 16 bars in it. If you are a trumpet player, your C major scale that you're using for almost all of this solo, where you're making up your own music, will include these notes. Pretty straightforward. We know that high B will be second finger. For low brass players, this would be B flat, C, D, E flat, F, G, A, and high B flat. Changing to your relative minor, we know that the relative minor is based on note number 6 of your scale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So typically what we do is we start a couple of steps lower on the low version of note number 6, down on low A. Which gives you this. And you could potentially continue it up with the next high B and high C as well. It's still the notes of the scale. To make it harmonic minor, which is the one that fits with Fly Me to the Moon in bar 7 and bar 8 of the song, we need to sharpen the new note number 7. So low A is now note number 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So G becomes G sharp. Low brass players, if you've got your Seagull Scales step 1 sheet in front of you, hopefully you can follow along with how I've just ended up with that. So the really cool thing here is that apart from having to count bars until you get to bar 7 and actually know where you are while playing tunes, you only need to change one note amidst what you're doing. So before we were starting on the 3rd note of the scale, me, and then you would end the phrase on me as well. You can continue kind of revolving around that E note there because E is common between the two scales. In fact, every single note except for that one is common between the two scales. So do not freak out when you get to that bar 7 and you're like, oh no, I have to change scales. That sounds like a much bigger deal than it actually is. Because in real life, all you are doing is making any Gs into G sharps instead. The equivalent for trombone. Note number 5 of our major scale is an F. If you put it into the minor version, there is the full harmonic minor for trombone, baritone, euphonium, and we need to sharpen the 7th note of it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. F becomes F sharp, 5th position. Once again, you are only changing one note. The first scale is identical to its harmonic minor, apart from the note F. So that is why, apart from keeping track of where you are in terms of the bar numbers and how many 2 bars or 4 bar phrases you've played in order to change at the right time, all you're really doing is changing one note for a couple of bars. The really good news, if you forget to change it and then you hit that note in bar 7 or bar 8 and it sounds really crunchy, it's really going to be bar 7 that happens in. And it sounds really crunchy and you go, oh no, that sounded awful. All you need to do is shift it up to F sharp or G sharp, and all of a sudden it sounds jazzy like you meant to do it. So I hope that helps. I'm going to tack this on to the end of the main video somewhere. There'll be a tasteful fade out or something, and hopefully that makes things even easier. Thanks a lot. Bye.